Welcome into K-State Online. I am Mason Voth. That is Derek Young. We are here back for another season of the KSO preview show, ready to talk game number 1 in week 0. Earliest start that we've had to talk about K-State football as the Wildcats get ready to head over to Ireland to face the Iowa State Cyclones for the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. I'll start by asking you this, DY. Are you surprised that K-State is making the decision to leave on Wednesday and that they didn't want to try to get over there any earlier?
And shout out to Aer Lingus, who's been our partner for a full year now,
Cats
right?
to Ireland. Yeah, cats2ireland.com if you're still thinking about finding things to do over there.
They're helping us get there. Been a great partner, and credit to them. It took a lot of burden off of us. That partnership did in the last year. So you won't hear cats2ireland.com. Probably this is the last time. So salute to them. In terms of not going earlier, here is what I have learned, and also how NFL teams have approached international travel and to go to Denver, mind you, is that the less time you are there, the better, is what apparently is what the research says. Because if you were there too long in the altitude, it kind of starts to zap you in that second or third day. If you're in and out, it's funny, the Chiefs basically travel day of, leave day of when they play the Broncos, for example. They don't mess around. The effects don't have enough time to impact you. Now, when it comes to this kind of overseas travel, from what I have gathered, is if you stay there too long, you start to become adapted to Ireland time, and then you're like, oh crap, we got another game in United States time next week. Not exactly a good thing. And by the way, that game is at 6:00, so it'll be, if they got used to Ireland time, it'd be starting at like 1 or 2 a.m. So you can't do that.
Yeah, well, and I think if you look at it, it's beneficial that this game is starting at 11 a.m. Central. So it's not like, because you think about watching the British Open, it's like guys are teeing off at 2:30 in the morning. And it's like, okay, you're not going to have to start at some crazy time back home to where you get over there and it may not be the most fun thing in the world, but you could in some ways kind of try to keep guys on like a similar sleep schedule and just say, hey, I know that it's like 3:30 in the morning, but like go to bed now and we'll just treat this like an 11 a.m. game back at home. And then, I think it makes more sense in how it's going to help them adjust to coming back home than how it would help them adjust to being there. Because I think maybe after that first day, you'll kind of get used to it. And, your sleep may adjust enough to where, like that Friday or something might be a heavy sleep day for them. And then by that time, you're ready to attack on Saturday.
It'll be a weird game week, and I'm sure they're going to practice on Thursday in the practice on Wednesday in the United States before they go. But like, they're going to practice Thursday, but I'm guessing that's not your standard Thursday practice, is what I'm going to guess.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to see part of it on Thursday, so I'm excited to see what that looks like. All right, let's just get into talking about the game here. Aer Lingus College Football Classic, opening game of the college football season. K-State and Iowa State get to put Farmageddon on the main stage, even if ESPN's not fully treating it like they probably should. No college game day in Ireland this year. They reserved that for crappy ACC teams.
I defend them on a little bit.
Oh, no.
Last year it's not like last year was like the 7th time they've done that. It was the first time.
Yeah.
My guess is they realized how logistical of a nightmare it might have been.
Yeah, that's very true. The problem is that you set the precedent last year that you were going to go. And so at that point, it kind of starts to come across as like, oh, you just expect you have this marquee game. Why are you not going to build it up and treat it like that? But you're right. I mean, in the years before that, ESPN didn't have the game either. So like, I don't like when people go, well, but I understand.
Just don't go to TCU North Carolina next year, or we'll really be pissed.
Yeah, which they probably will, because it'll be Bill Belichick over there. So, although we'll see how this year goes for him on that front. Well, I mean, we like to get into it pretty quick here. So, talking about K-State's offense, what do you expect the offense to look like game number 1? It can always be a little bit of a tricky time for everybody, especially teams that are breaking in new pieces. And K-State certainly has a lot of guys that are going to be in new roles, like Dylan Edwards and Joe Jackson being the lead backs, and Jerron Tibbs is going to be expected to do a lot. And obviously all the offensive linemen that, Drew and I just talked about earlier today, but we got the offensive line depth chart that came out. So what do you make of what K-State's offense looks like to start the season?
Yeah, I think they're going to have the ability to hit the home run. I think they got home run players. They have Avery Johnson, who I think is going to even be a home run on the ground this year, where he wasn't last year. His longest run, and this blew my mind when Cole Manbeck actually exposed me to the stat a couple of weeks ago. His longest run last season was 33 yards. If you had told us that before last season, we would have, called you Frankenstein stupid, right? Like all these things. So I think he'll be more of a home run threat. And he was a home run threat a little bit through the air last year, mostly to Jace Brown. Jace Brown's yards per catch last year is actually impressive. Among I think the leaders in all of college football in that category. He had 823 yards, of course, broke a sophomore record at K-State doing so. But I think he did that on only just 47 catches. Imagine if the dude just catches 13 more balls, how many yards he's going to have. So I think you're talking about a home run type of team. My question becomes, do you have a chain mover that you can rely on so it's not like we need an explosive or we're going to have drives, come to a grinding halt? I think they need that. That may be where Joe Jackson comes into hand, because obviously Dylan Edwards, another home run threat. And it's like, can Dylan Edwards be a chain mover? He probably can. He could probably prove people wrong. Deuce Vaughn did that almost his entire career, of course. So don't look at the stature and come to a quick conclusion. But if you look at the rate bowl, I think like 80% of Dylan Edwards yards came on 3 or 4 plays.
Yeah, I think that, looking at what K-State has, it's just, once again, you're expecting guys to take jumps, and sometimes, it works, but other times it doesn't. So I'm interested in seeing just how quickly guys get acclimated to the new rule. I think Dylan Edwards and Joe Jackson, like, they've gotten enough opportunities that I'm not expecting it to be too difficult for them. But I would also keep in mind, like, that offensive line that we just flashed on the screen, that's an important element of this, where that's where the fingers got pointed on why the run game struggled in November last year. And so now you lose guys that you thought were solid from that offensive line. You have to switch it around even later than you thought you would because of the George Fitzpatrick situation. And now you also have running backs that aren't DJ Giddens. Like, I think Dylan Edwards and Joe Jackson are great running backs. I think the running back room is the best position on this team right now, but they're not necessarily the type of runners that are going to run, make things happen just in between the tackles. Like, you need them to be able to get outside
there. Unless Joe Jackson gets there.
Yeah, which I think he could. I mean, he's the candidate to do so.
But because people are talking about Dylan Edwards getting 1,000 yards, that's kind of been a big conversation we've had both on KSO and even when I do my podcast with Three Mall. Does Dylan Edwards get 1,000? Does anyone get 1,000? Who is the leading rusher? I don't think anyone gets 1,000, because to get 1,000, I think Dylan Edwards needs 190 to 200 carries. I don't know if he gets that many, because I think he's going to split it with Joe Jackson, maybe Antonio Martin, maybe Davon Price, whoever it may be in that third back role. And they obviously like Joe Jackson a lot, but I think Dylan Edwards gets used more effectively in the passing game this time around. You have a new offensive coordinator in Matt Wells that I think will succeed in doing that. But the offensive line, I agree, a little bit of a question mark. I get that. As I don't know if I see it as a 5-alarm concern. Because some of it's blindness, right? Because we haven't seen a lot of these guys play, but John Pastore was going to play a ton last year before he got hurt. JB Nelson was one of the best linemen in camp, and I just saw him today actually in person for the first time at media availability that we have every Monday in Veneer in Manhattan. That might be the largest human being I've seen of a Kansas State player in a long time, or ever. Like, that dude he made Dalton Reisner look small. I'll just say that.
Now, that's an impressive feat to have there. I think the tough thing, and K-State has a lot of this year, where you look at a position group and you go, I'm not worried. Like, you said 5-alarm. Like, there's not that on any of these positions. Corners may be the closest that you would get to doing
or
that.
Safety. Safety may be more than corner.
Oh, you think you're more concerned about safety than corner now?
Yeah. That's a different side of the ball. So we're completely flipping the conversation.
I mean, we'll get there, but
so it's funny. But like corners, I think what we've heard about Zayshawn Rich, I think is exactly what we needed to hear to feel good about that room.
Okay.
And safety, what we've heard about Gunnar Maldonado is exactly what we didn't want to hear about that
Yeah,
room.
that he's hurt again, and
Yeah.
yeah. I get that. I guess it's just I think most of them though, like I'm not to that point with any of them. I think you have a lot of good options. It's just until you see it,
Yeah.
you don't know that you can put a lot of weight into it, and it's different too. This is not 2021 K State where you're going into it where expectations are somewhat minimal. Where you're like, yeah, you win 8 games, that's a pretty good season for this team. This team has to win a lot of games this season. Like this
Yeah.
team
And
needs to
nine
be competing for a Big 12 title.
and 9 regular season wins is probably not enough unless that somehow
Yeah.
you can get to Arlington with 9 wins, just like you did in 22.
Yeah. Do you expect Avery Johnson to come out and perform at a higher level in this game than he did last year against Iowa State?
Blindly say yes. There is a world where this Iowa State defense is better than last year's, though. So that's there. It's kind of a floating target here. I mean, I think there's a world where this could be the best defense he plays all year, and he has to play him out of the gate in week 0. I think now it's probably going to be Utah, and I would say Utah, but like Iowa State gets their linebackers back. Dom Orange is a hell of a defensive tackle. They had 2 guys on the All Big 12 preseason team in the secondary. Like these guys might be pretty nasty on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I think Iowa State's defense it's the strongest part of them, and it's when you look at comparing the two teams, you think that K-State's offense is probably in a more sturdy spot than Iowa State's. Iowa State's defense is in a better spot than K-State's. It's just a matter of which one do you like more? Like, where's the greater distance between them? So I guess I'll ask that to you. Is K-State's offense further ahead of Iowa State's than what Iowa State's defense is to K-State's defense?
It's probably pretty even. That's why this game,
Yeah.
like it's hard to give a slight edge. It is. I mean, because we're a Kansas State podcast, we're probably going to say Kansas State. But like, what happens if that safety room is kind of like that safety room last year? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I hope not. I hope that it's I
Because
don't want to see a bunch of safeties in position and letting the ball go right through them.
we're banking on the unknown a little bit here. We're kind of flying. We're flying blind. There's. I mean, Gunnar Maldonado wasn't even listed on the depth chart. Chris Kleiman called him questionable. We'll see, but he wasn't even listed on the depth chart. And it was Wesley Fair, who's never started a game at free safety and probably has 5 meaningful snaps at free safety.
Yeah.
Or actually was listed as jack safety on the on the depth chart, but I don't know. I tend to think that defensive depth chart was a little deceiving. We'll see what happens on, in Ireland. And then, or Logan Bartley, a true freshman. So it's Wesley Fair or Logan Bartley, whatever safety you want to call it. And Logan Bartley's never even played a game of college football. So we're flying blind a little bit here.
Yeah. All right. Well, in an effort to try and get the answer out of you, where instead of, because I'm with you, it is very 50-50. Like Drew and I talked about this probably a month ago when we got to a month out from the game, and we're looking at it, and it's like, okay, I would favor basically all of K-State's offensive positions over Iowa State's, but I would favor almost all of Iowa State's defensive positions. And I think we took 10 positions, and it was 5-5 is how it broke down. So I guess I would ask you, if you're in the position of Iowa State has to replace those receivers from last season that made up a big chunk of their offense, K-State obviously has to replace the secondary. Which position would you rather be in there then? And maybe in some ways, this is the right kind of matchup that if you're going to play in this game and you're going to face a Power 4 conference opponent, you want it to be the team that has to rely on throwing the ball because they haven't ran the ball very well, but they have to be able to throw the ball with a bunch of new targets for their quarterback, Rocco Beck.
Maybe I'd rather be K-State in this game, but in general, I think I'd rather be Iowa State because, I'm breaking in wide receivers, but I got a third-year starting quarterback in Rocco Beck that should make that life a little bit easier. If I have all these new defensive backs from a secondary that weren't even good to begin with last year as a whole, obviously Jacob Parrish and Marquise Siegel are pretty good. They might even start in the NFL in year one. Like, my defensive front 6, 7 has to be pretty damn good. They might be. They might be. I think they're going to. I think there is a very, very high floor for the Kansas State front, whatever 6 or 7, however you want to call it. I think the ceiling is also very high, but where do you get? Do you
Yeah,
get
they may.
lower or high?
It's about if they have the ability to actually get up that high. It's like I've got 2 light bulbs that need replaced in my garage right now. I could get up there and take care of it myself. I don't have a ladder tall enough to get up there and do it though. So what have we been doing? Just dealing with only one light bulb that works in our garage lately. And that's where it still works. I can still see in the garage. I can still get around, but I could see a whole heck of a lot better if those 2 other light bulbs were fixed. So I think that's where for K-State's, defensive front right now, I get what you're saying because I don't
And
think they're going to be bad, but it's especially with things that need to
they're
happen in
going to
the
be at least
secondary.
solid, but are they special? We'll see
Well,
on that.
and like, yeah, are you going to be able to make life easier on the secondary? Are you going to be able to get enough pressure to where it's not, hey, your DBs are in coverage for X amount of seconds, where the quarterback has little time to think on his feet.
And for the detractors out there that are like just about losing their mind for everything we just said in the last minute or two, I hear you. The Rocco Beck detractors, because when it comes to turnover luck, he was one of the best in the game on the positive side, meaning he was pretty fortunate last year, especially in that Kansas State game when it came to turnover throws that didn't actually amount to turnovers. So he got bailed out a little bit too. I get it.
Yeah. All right. On the offense, what do you expect to work for them in this game against Iowa State? I know obviously you don't have a lot to go on here because of there hasn't been any games played yet, but is there an area where you're not concerned about K-State's offense? Because I think anytime you're starting the season, especially in a game like this, and new coordinator, some new pieces, there's going to be jitters for everybody until you see success take place. But is there an area that you're not concerned about K-State being able to get the job done?
I am. Yeah, it's a lot of unknown. These questions are how we do the podcast, and it's a lot easier when we actually have a body of work to go
Yeah.
off of, and especially when we barely get to see practices. Got a lot of new faces. This is blind faith here. Really, it is. I'm going to, and it's a little nutty to say this because I know I've mentioned all year how this could be like a turnover type game because of what the weather typically is in Ireland. But
Mhm.
I think Kansas State's going to take care of the ball.
Okay. I like that. I mean, Cole Manbeck, obviously somebody we have a lot of acquaintances with. He posted the stat on Twitter yesterday that K-State's turned it over at least once every game of the Kleiman era against Iowa State. Meanwhile, Iowa State only has one game with a turnover in that time frame, and it was 2 fumbles in the snowstorm of 2023. So you would think, yeah, K-State should be due, and they'd want to take care of it better. And I'll go back to this, like, through the first half of the Houston game last season, I thought that stretch of Oklahoma State to the first half of Houston, Avery Johnson was starting to throw the ball a lot better and was making some better decisions, was making some bigger throws. And then obviously the downpour started and the offensive line couldn't block. They couldn't run the ball, and he had to throw the ball, like 30 times in the second half in the pouring rain. And I think it zapped some of his confidence, and it makes it harder to throw as the season goes on too when you can't run the ball. I think with the offseason, the experience and all that, I think that throwing the football and having an added weapon in Jerron Tibbs, I think that throwing the ball, I might feel better about that entering this game for K-State than running it, mainly because of who the opponent is. Because Iowa State, it's anchored by Dom Orange up there on the defensive
I will,
line. But
I will
my
say
question
Iowa
about
State
the
could,
offensive line, I don't know how the running will look like there early.
yeah, although Iowa State couldn't stop the run very well last year.
No, they struggled at it, but then K-State didn't make it look too difficult for them in Ames. Last offensive question for you. Drew posed this question to us on the Sunday show last night. If you're Matt Wells, what is your first play call for the offense on Saturday against Iowa State?
Maybe I try because they're just going to be like, watch out, Avery Johnson can run. Avery Johnson
Option?
can Avery Johnson.
You try an option again?
No, they're because they're going to think Avery Johnson can run. Avery Johnson can run. Everyone's been talking about Jerron Tibbs all off season, and Iowa State's been picking up on that too. Jace Brown at 823 yards last year. All these tight ends caught so many balls. A little bit of misdirection here too. Like I just don't want to say, oh, this play. You need to throw some lipstick on it a little bit. Make it deceptive. do the formations, do motions, do all that stuff, but catch Dylan Edwards on a wheel.
Okay. All right. I thought you were going to say all that and go 1st and 10 from the 25.
Halfback
draw. Yeah. Or no, I was going to at least give you the benefit of a draw maybe there. But yeah, that'd be funny too if K-State came out and was just like, turn around, hand it to Dylan Edwards, go from there. On the defensive side here, with the Iowa State turnover at receiver, and I think they picked up capable ones in the transfer portal, but I think sometimes it takes a little bit to get into it. How do you expect the K-State secondary, which is in flux a little bit right now, to handle facing Rocco Becht and this Iowa State passing attack? Because not only could they not really stop the run last year, they're not a great running team themselves.
Right. I think Kansas State can probably cover 1v1. Like you said, I'm not sure that there's going to be a receiver that really intimidates me from the Iowa State roster. And I bet Zayshawn Rich and Donovan McIntosh man coverage can really cover. Zone principles, they probably need to be a little bit better. What I'm thinking from those two and even the safeties is don't get caught with your hand in a cookie jar. Don't get tricked. Don't get sucked up something over the top just because you're not in the right spot. So it's more of the mental stuff. There's going to be a lot of trade shifts and motions. They're going to try to trick you. Don't get tricked.
Yeah. Were anything else on the defense that you want to touch? Because I think it's pretty straightforward here. Like,
I don't think Iowa State can run on Kansas State.
Yeah, and Iowa State also. I mean, I think had a propensity to maybe give up some sacks last season. So you're kind of looking at that where this is a good. How do the defensive ends kind of sort themselves in this game?
Iowa State's got a solid offensive line, most of it back, I think, too. But they didn't really run the ball well last year. Now they run the ball fine on K-State. It's the only team they run it well on. So who the hell knows?
Yeah. Well, as long as there's not snow that shows up on the field, hopefully K-State's all right. We'll get back to talking about the Cats and the Clones in a second. But before we do that, it's time for Best Bets, where I promise I'll do a better job of tracking it this year. I think DY did end up winning the season-long race last season. There were a couple of good weeks towards the end for you. And here we go. The look at what we have for this week. Not many games in week 0. I didn't want to double up with all the same things, but the one that I agree with you on is the under in the K-State Iowa State game. I think that to me feels like a lock. I just don't expect that many points to be scored in game number 1 of the season. So
bet the farm.
The farm. Well, speaking of the farm, I've got Stanford money line against Hawaii. Yeah, I know. And I would typically like Hawaii in that spot, but I was like, can a Power 4 program really not have that much pride and respect for themselves that they can't go down there and find a way to beat Hawaii in like a makeshift stadium?
That's why I said Hawaii covers, because if you're like one of the sports books, it's got to take a lot for you to make Hawaii a favorite over a Power 4 team. Even if your numbers spit that out, you go back and look, like, are we right about this? Like, or should we be doing this? So it takes a lot. So they know something. I'm going with the books.
Yeah, I will say, though, I'm kind of a Frank Reich guy. I think that he's kind of gotten screwed in his NFL tenure. So
yeah, well, I'm not a throw what at the wall guy. And I think that's what Stanford's been doing for the last 18 months.
Andrew Luck, he's their GM. He's smartest guy in football. DY. You think he's just throwing stuff at the wall?
Yeah, and then you go, a few miles away. I actually don't know how far Berkeley is from Palo Alto, but they got Ron Rivera running things there. So these Silicon Valley schools apparently think they got something brewing.
Well, let's just keep going down the state of California. About 180 miles away, Fresno sits. They're on what?
Is that north? Fresno's north, right?
No, Fresno's south. Because Stanford's about as far north in California as you can get, I think.
Jeez,
I don't know. I don't really know my California geography. Well, other than that, I know
my California politics. Blue state. There we go.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know that you really know them other than you just know how they vote.
Yes, that's all I know.
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I just Los Angeles, I only know it's south because Southern California is there. So, like, what else can you have going on there? We'll figure out where Palo Alto is and how far north it is and everything.
We'll report back next week.
It's about a 3-hour drive for them. Yeah, actually, they're about on the same plane when you would look east-west. They're about level with each other. Palo Alto is just south of San Francisco. Fresno is just more inward because it's in the valley, as they refer to it. That's why they put the green V on their helmets in their field. But it's just more inward. Anyways, they go to KU for week 0. A little benefit for the Jayhawks in the Big 12 getting another week 0 game because Fresno has to play at Hawaii later this season. So that makes Fresno eligible to play a week 0 game, which then for some reason also just adjusts as, hey, somebody else can grab it. I took the over in this game because, I see where you're going on this one. I probably would lean that way too. I think KU against this Fresno team will probably score a lot of points. Fresno probably chips in enough on their own too to help go over that number. So I just expect this to be one of those week 0 games with a lot of scoring. But why do you like the Jayhawks by almost 2 touchdowns?
I thought that if I would have guessed what the line would be, I would probably think 16.5 or 17.5, to be honest. One, because I know KU's replacing a lot, but I think as a program, you're always going to have a certain floor when Lance Leipold is your coach. And I know people hate me giving that blind credit to him when he's had one winning season in KU. I get it. But I think there's a certain floor of.
I said 2.
Okay. Certain floor of performance when Lance Leipold is your coach that I don't think you get below. And I also think Fresno's pretty, you know what?
Dog bleep. Yeah. I assume is what you're looking for.
They might make dog bleep look appetizing.
Oh boy. Well, good luck to the Bulldogs, who are not looking good in Derek Young's eyes. All right, that's best bets for the week. Obviously, we didn't need to give a K-State specific one because minimal games. We give you both the under there, which probably means it'll probably be 35-35 at the end of regulation, and K-State fans will have to sweat out overtime when that game gets going. Back to K-State, Iowa State, and discussing this Aer Lingus College Football Classic. When you think about what K-State has in front of them, what they'll be facing here, who needs to be that guy on offense to help K-State get over the hump and get back in the win column against Iowa State?
Avery Johnson. Yeah. If you say someone else, you're being too cute. It's kind of what I said for offensive MVP. And because you have Jace Brown, but you're breaking into new receivers. You have Taylor Portier and Sam Hecht, but you're breaking all new offensive line. I know you have the tight ends. You're breaking in a new running back in Joe Jackson. And at least for being at the top of the line contributor, Dylan a little bit too. Like Dylan really never had that game until we got to the Red Bull against Rutgers, if we're being quite honest. So Avery Johnson's the steadying force here. Look, he has to be good for them to win. If he's bad, they're not going to win.
Yeah, I'm with you. And we talked about it on the Sunday show, but I kind of said that, what if Avery Johnson plays a B game on Saturday? Does that mean that K-State wins? And Fan and Drew kind of agreed that they thought, if you get a B game out of Avery Johnson, they win that game. And I think he can at least deliver that for you. I think he's going to be better overall than he was last year. And I don't even think he was that bad last year. It just wasn't what people expected. I think you're going to get more consistency. I think you're going to get better performances out of more of the good teams you face this year than last season, where you really only got it against Colorado.
I do have a honorable mention because he's not the right answer. And this is probably maybe one where there's more pressure to perform. And he probably doesn't feel it because he probably has no idea what the Kansas State transfer wide receiver history is. It's Jerron Tips. Because if he does nothing, people are going to say, here we go again.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Dante Cephas. Oh, Keegan Johnson. Oh, Carlos Strickland. Oh, just you can go down the list of all these receivers that you hear about and nothing. So, yeah, I would agree because I think Avery and Jace are going to be steady forces. I think Dylan Edwards and Joe Jackson, I think, are going to come up for you. You're not going to have to worry too much as the season wears on. It's what's going to make K-State different this year than last season in 2023 is you are going to have a legit number 2 that you can trust. And that's why if you look back at 2022, one of the things that helped bring it together is there were no weaknesses. And I think over time, Cade Warner's performance just gets stronger and stronger. So
and Phillip Brooks and Cade Warner both almost had 500 yards.
And that's where the problem came for K-State the following year is that you went from Phillip Brooks can be your second or third best receiver and serve that role because you had Malik Knowles, who was a little more gifted athletically, was bigger. You can't really have Phillip Brooks be your number one receiver when your number two is Keegan Johnson. And that's why midway through 2023, true freshman Jace Brown took over as the best receiver on the team. So I think you're right. I mean, if you get a good Jerron Tibbs game, that maybe more than Avery Johnson having a good game solidifies a win
It'll
for you.
make fans feel a lot better. I know that.
Yeah.
Because they're probably still holding their breath on the Jerron Tibbs hype being for real. I think it is. The and I wouldn't even say there was really Jerron Bradley hype, to be quite honest. But I would think, anything from him is almost just like, all right.
Yeah, he seems like he might be in line to give more than I anticipated based off of kind of how he'd been treated at the end of his Texas Tech and Boston College.
Yeah, we'll see. Jury's still out there, and I'll be curious because I don't know how good they'll be early. I got a fly flying around me.
I thought you caught it at first.
Yeah, well, I felt some contact, I will say. I'll be curious, at least early on, because I think they'll be fine midway through, is how good the offensive line is early, or how bad. Hopefully it's not how bad, but because you do have Taylor Portier, Sam Heck, played a lot of football. John Pastore was going to start last year, or going to play a lot last year. Now you're starting left tackle. Your right side's all new because Andrew Langang's basically going to be your sixth man. And probably still, everyone's probably like, man, Andrew Langang's going to go his entire year without starting. I bet he gets starter number of snaps because I bet there's some kind of platoon situation somewhere. And maybe it is at right guard, maybe it's at right tackle. We'll see. But you have JB Nelson, Terrence Enos on that right side.
And one of those guys is like offensive linemen are bound to have one of those games where you just go, we can't have him out there right now. And it's K-State's going to benefit from having the luxury of feeling like you have another starter available to throw out.
That's how I think of it, is almost like six starters. And I know we haven't got to the defense yet, but I also think of like
get into the defense.
Kansas State just needs to get through these. Man, if they can get off to like a 4-0 and 5-0 start, and they haven't under Chris Kleiman, to be frank, if they can do that, and I know that's when the schedule actually stiffens, the weird circumstances disappear, but the actual good teams end up coming up on your schedule at that point. But you're talking about maybe you get Gunnar Maldonado in top form by then. You'll have Colby McAllister back by then. And although he probably won't start for Kansas State, I think Colby McAllister is good enough to start for a lot of teams at safety. He's that good when he plays. You maybe start to have some Asa Newsome life into your program. He starts to get into it because you think that's probably going to happen later in the season as well, right? Maybe he's not even in the linebacker rotation, but even having Asa Newsome, having a presence on your team, doing special teams, just doing anything, I think would be a nice thing to have. Your secondary at large is going to have the experience it didn't have this first 5 games. So it starts to click in a little better. That offensive line starts to click in a little bit better. Maybe George Fitzpatrick returns halfway through the season as well. It gives you something at offensive tackle. So it's almost like, man, if you can survive the weird circumstances and just get to that 5th or 6th game unscathed, you almost have a whole different team.
I think it's wise to point out on the defensive side in this game in particular, who is the guy that if K-State is going to win or at least get an edge on defense needs to be the number one to step up.
I think they need to do something to affect the passing game. And I think probably asking that from the secondary that's inexperienced in game 0, week 0, even earlier than usual, might be a step too far, but you need to affect the passing game. You're talking about maybe pressure. So I would look at a defensive lineman that can really get after the passer. And I'll give you 2 names. And I know you're looking for one. I'll give you 2.
No, that's all right. I throw as many names out there as you want.
Ryan Davis, Toby Osunsami. Ryan Davis, because he's been the buzzworthy player all off season. Let's see why. Toby Osunsami, because we think of him as the best pure pass rusher on the team. Let's see it. But like Toby, don't like run past it. Don't get yourself out of the play. Be under control, because I think some of his rushes end up being negative as chaotic. Well. Yeah. So like, be under control. I mean, affect it. You don't have to take yourself out of the play because you're trying to, do everything possible to get to the quarterback and you end up making it a negative, just affect Rocco Beck.
Yeah. I don't think that's a bad answer there, going with one of those two defensive ends to step up. I to be different than you on this one, because I also probably would have gone Ryan Davis. We've heard the hype all off season, so you're like, I want to see a step up and really impact it. But I'll go Zayshawn Rich, because I think the expectation is for him to step up and be your best corner now, but he's still young. The experience isn't totally there. And so like this is a good get your toe wet type of situation where you're not facing, the Jalen Knoll and Jaden Higgins like you would have last year, but you're facing fine receivers and a quarterback that's entering his third year starting. So it's not easy, but it's also not going to overwhelm you. So the opportunity is there to kind of show, hey, can you make an impact in this, or at the very least, make your side of the field be shut down and not be much of a factor in this game, like Jacob Parrish was able to do at points last season for K-State. And I'm not expecting you to be as good as Jacob Parrish in game number 1 in your starting role, but I think given the uncertainty there, K-State would probably be put in a good situation momentum-wise if you felt like, okay, one of these guys has taken, and then certainly if you get to the other side and Donovan McIntosh does the same, then you've got an even better team at the start of the season than what I think people anticipate. But I think that's outside of defensive end. That's where you would go next and say, all right, one of these corners has to step up. Zayshawn Rich seems like the guy.
They need to do something to the passing game. I feel comfortable about what they can do to the run game.
Yeah, I mean, you've got guys that can plug it in the middle. You got guys that can move at linebacker on the edge that can help stop it if it tries getting outside. So it feels good and looks good there for everything. All right, well, that means that we got to dive into it now. What is your game pick for this one? Are you taking the Cats, and what's the score?
Yeah, I think it's a low scoring game, as I laid out in that, in the best bets at under 49.5, but I believe I'm not as high on Iowa State as everyone else. I they didn't really have a great running game last year. Now you're going to have a passing game that's maybe hamstrung, at least early on, when you try to break in these new targets. Sure, you have the tight ends, but we'll see what happens. Can your offensive line protect long enough? I just like the matchup more for Kansas State. Now, I'm not certain Kansas State scores a lot of points either. So, and conditions maybe have an impact as well. I don't think it'll rain, but there's a little bit of a chance, and always a little bit of a chance when you're in Dublin, Ireland, of rain. If you watch a British Open as much as we do, I don't know if I've ever seen a dry one. So that's just the way it goes. I'll take Cats, not by a lot, and a low-scoring game, 23-17. And before I give it to Mason here, I want to say your best bet was under 49.5 for this game as well.
Yep.
Well, when we went game by game predictions, you had it as 55.
I realized that, but I'll tell you why. I thought that it was going to be clear, and then I saw that they did sprinkle a little rain chance in there, and I was like, that's where you can find out that the game predictions change depending on when you make them. Because I'm going to guess that I gave a different one when I had. Oh well, but you did it, I guess, with fans. So I was going to say I would have had a different one if I had done it, 3 weeks ago when Fan was giving his. I think now it is probably you're sitting probably more in the territory of this being like a 27 to, I would go 20 range type of game where I think. I'll say K-State gets the 27 by missing an extra point, and Iowa State gets to their 20 because they have 2 touchdowns and they make 2 field goals because Conradi's a pretty solid kicker. So I think that's probably more of where this game lives. Just both teams have a lot of feeling out to do. And the thing that could go haywire for K-State in this game is if Iowa State has a connection quickly between Rocco Becht and the new receivers, and K-State is that much of a disaster in the secondary that corners are getting burnt and you're giving up big plays, and it's like you have no time to stop and breathe. And Iowa State kind of gets this to avalanche on you. I don't think it'll happen. That's why you're going to need those guys on the front, the linemen and the linebackers, to step up a little bit. But that would be that's where I'd paint the nightmare scenario. Is that
that's actually kind of a fun exercise that I almost want to do. the nightmare exercise for each team on each side of the ball.
Maybe we should. I think this should be something we just do
Yeah.
every week where you
Yeah,
paint
because it's
the
really
nightmare scenario.
for both teams, because you can
Yeah.
see where the bottom can fall out really quickly. So when Kansas State has the ball, or no, so when Iowa State has the ball, Kansas State's on defense. Maybe not identical to how you laid it out, but I do agree. The nightmare situation for Kansas State is you have a lot of new pieces in that secondary. They get faked out by a pump fake or just a really good motion shift, just a sneaky, like almost hidden play action type of play where a guy sneaks out and they don't notice it, and it's a big play. And you only need 2 or 3 of those to really shift the game. And it's easier to do that against a secondary that has a lot of inexperience. But if I was going to be nightmare for Iowa State offense, is that your receivers have a hard time getting open because they're kind of new to the system and not playing as fast as they should. You're on the wet grass in Ireland, and you're really not getting much of a passing game because of that. And all of a sudden, you don't have that running game to rely on like a lot of other teams have. And then the Kansas State pass rushers all of a sudden pin their ears back, and you have a hard time just getting anything going on offense.
Well, and this would be one of the things that if you kind of go and look at it with Iowa State last season, and you try to go, look at what Rocco Beck did in that game against K-State last year, the 29-21 Iowa State win. Rocco Beck threw 22 incompletions. He was 13 of 35 throwing the ball in the game. So he was pretty wild, and it was cold, but it was dry out. So then you think they're like, even if it's not raining, like there's going to be moisture in the air. It could be a little slick. Like, I think that's where you just, new receivers, wet conditions, you see a lot of balls that just go over receivers' heads or dirted, and it's a lot of balls bouncing on the ground for Iowa State.
What's the chemistry like there? And then all of a sudden, if you don't have a run game and Kansas State can just like tee off on the pass,
yeah,
we talked
makes it a lot easier.
We talked about this. They may have the pass rushers to look out for.
Yes, and I think then like the other area of this where if you just like if this game got away for either side, it's probably because the Iowa State run defense hasn't improved at all, and K-State now with a fresh offensive line is able to exploit it this year, unlike they were able to last year. And we know that based off what we saw with Dylan Edwards in the Rate Bowl, like if you get a bad run defense, he's going to make you pay, and he's going to make some things happen. And they don't have to slow down either because Joe Jackson's pretty good too.
The nightmare scenario could be you can't slow down the run game, which could include Avery Johnson as well.
Yeah.
And then Avery Johnson, you got to remember, he was also much better in play action than any other type of pass last year. So that's the nightmare scenario for the Iowa State defense for sure. The nightmare scenario for the Kansas State offense is the offensive line has a bad game because they don't know what to do yet.
And I mean, to throw into this, I don't think it happens because I would like to think that a guy that got to start 13 games last year and has had a whole offseason to think about where the errors came from, that when the pressure comes because the offensive line's breaking down, is that Avery Johnson kind of panics again and loses control of it, like we saw at the end of the first half against Arizona where he let the time run out, or the safety that he took against Iowa State and some of the mistakes that he made against BYU or
I think that's good. I think that's fair. I think that'll be the biggest difference between Avery last year and this year.
I agree. I think I feel pretty good about that being the case, but we saw it enough last year. It's like I want to have visual confirmation that it's taken place, not just assuming and taking, the word of Matt Wells, who has his guys back. All right. Well, to close up shop, then we're both taking the Cats. That could be a death nail right there. Big 12 scoreboard. We actually have one to look at this week because there is another Big 12 week 0 game. Normally not many power conferences can say that. Only one of them though, Fresno State, KU. We talked about it a little bit because we both think that KU covers that 12.5. That's a 5:30 on Fox kickoff. What do you expect from KU to start the season?
I agree a lot of points.
The Big 12 what they can do.
I agree on a lot of points. I think they're going to benefit by not putting Jalen Daniels in bubble wrap for an entire offseason.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting to kind of see, because this is an opportunity for them to make a statement in a different way than K-State, where it's K-State's facing a team that you're expecting kind of a dogfight. If K-State wins, no matter how it looks, that's a big enough deal. For KU, it's kind of, how's this offense going to look with so many of the pieces that you lost last year that make up, one of the best stretches of football that the program's ever had. And then guys that are like all timers for offensive production there, because Jalen Daniels is really the only one that returns. So it'll be fascinating to see how that game ends up playing out. We'll probably be in bed by that point. So we'll see how things go. 11:30 over there.
Yeah, I mean,
Might still
maybe.
be at the stadium working, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, no, actually, well, we might be in transit.
11:30 p.m. Yeah, back to the hotel. That's true. Could be. But that's all we got. Big 12 scoreboard. Lame
Can you
this
watch
week.
that game in Ireland? Do they have Fox?
Probably not. Well, I don't know, but we probably can't. I don't know how much college football you can see over there. We may only get to see the one in front of us, and all those other games mean nothing. But that's all right. I don't want people to lose sight of, even with all the questions about this game and how it's going to play out and all that, how special it is that K-State does get to be a part of the very first game of the college football season, and that they'll have this stage, they have this opportunity. And it's obviously been embraced by K-State fans. I know that there was a little bit of shakiness on how people felt about it when it was announced, because, yeah, you're giving up a home game. It is Iowa State. It's a Big 12 game and all that. But there's going to be a lot of purple in Ireland. It's going to be a good time leading up to it. And we're expecting at least it to be a good time in the 3 hours while the game's going and everything that happens afterwards. And I guess I'll end with this, DY. Now that we are in game week and just days away from kickoff, how do you feel about your final thoughts on K-State moving this game to Dublin?
The novelty is standing out more and more as special the closer we get. I will say that. If you're a Manhattan business person or someone that is sympathetic towards them, I get it. I'm not going to tell you not how to feel, but the novelty of this game, the closer it gets, is really cool. I'm getting more excited the closer it gets. So there's that.
Yeah, I it's exciting to think about and get to see as you get closer to it. I think I forget a little bit more about that other stuff, and I'd be that way if I was sitting on my couch watching it this weekend. But I also know that if the game ends on Saturday and K-State starts the season 0-1,
nobody's going to like
Gene Taylor's going to have a lot of heat. And this schedule has a lot of quirks in it this year, as we've already discussed, because Army week 2 is not great. Now, that's not Gene Taylor's fault. That would fall at the doors of, I believe, John Curry was the AD when that game got put on the schedule. The Friday night game at Arizona, you don't have much say in that because of the TV partners, but one of those. Yeah, good job. Got your outlet. Hope everybody else already has theirs that's over there or getting ready to go. I'm sure they'll charge you a pretty penny in Ireland if you're looking for something like that. But yeah, we'll see everybody over there come game day, and probably a lot of K-State in the airport on our way there as well. So for Derek Young, I'm Mason Voth. Thanks for watching and listening to the KSO show. We got more K-State stuff coming for you tomorrow. 2 KSO classics for you to enjoy on your way over to Ireland or just in the build up to the game. 1993, Drew and I look at the Copper Bowl, our first full watches of that game ever. And then to get everybody in the spirit, 2002 Iowa State, the Bobby Walker game. So we have all that going for you. And then by the time we get to Ireland, we get to look at a practice, talk to some cats. We'll have a reaction from that. And then the game will be coming shortly after. So we are out of here. Thanks for watching and listening.